Alright, today we're going to begin working with some value. Now when we do this just right, it will really work together with what we have to kind of further bring it to life. Whenever we start adding some highlights and some shadows, it kind of takes it to that next level. Really kind of can make your work look more realistic, make it kind of create some form to it, might make it look kind of 3D in a way. So the first thing that I started off doing again was rediscovering the colors I worked with. So I've figured out with my head and my ears, my hands, I was working with this lighter orange here. So then I tested again on my paper to find a lighter version, which would be this yellow, and a darker version, which would be more of this orangish red kind of. I also did that for my shirt. So this light one here was my original color, and then I found two different darker versions. And I'll show you too, we can also use white to add some further highlights. So first things first, the main areas that we're going to be working with these tints and shades are kind of wherever something would kind of overlap another area. Like for instance, underneath the chin here, we're going to create a little darker line to make it look like there's a little shadow underneath it. Around the outside of the head, we're also going to add some of that slightly darker color to make it look like the front part of the face might be popping out more. And then with darker colors of the shirt, we're going to kind of focus on the outer parts of the arms here, kind of in between the areas. Now I have a ball of yarn on this one, so that's going to affect it a little bit, but I'll show you on my other example later. And then definitely underneath these arms too would be a great spot to create a shadow. So let's begin. I'm going to now grab my slightly darker version of my face. Remember, I'm going to hold it kind of flat, and then just kind of start to go around, keeping it flat on my paper, around the whole outside of the head. Remember, you gotta go kind of slow with this because we don't want these colors to get out of control. So I'm going to go there, and I'll also create that little line under the chin that I was talking about. Now, you can really kind of take these tints and shades as far as you would like. I could even add some shading on the ears, and I'll show you a little bit. I'll do it on the hair. So the more areas you think about creating these shadows, the more realistic that your work will become. Sorry, you couldn't see my ears there. So now I'm going to just very lightly kind of blend in that shade into those areas. And what I want to do is to try to carefully blend them in enough where I don't really see where the two colors met. You know, right now, if I leave it just like that, you can kind of see in some spots the lighter version and the darker version, and it's very distinct between the two. If I kind of take my fingers and I kind of go in little circle motions where those two meet, I should be able to kind of encourage them to become friends a little more, to the point where I don't see that hard line between the two anymore. I want it to just very slowly change from one to another. And there, definitely can see I got rid of that hard line that you can kind of still see here. So that's kind of your goal. And less is more. Start with just a little bit of that darker color, because you can always add more if needed, but it's a little bit harder to take it away if you had too much. So again, I don't want to just leave a hard line like that. I want to now soften those two colors up. And I always like to kind of move my finger kind of in the motion of what I'm coloring. So I'm not just going back and forth sideways on this. I'm kind of curving with that shape of the neck. Okay. Now, if I do happen to get a spot too dark, I could go back to that first color I was using, and I could just kind of add some more where needed. You know, it's all about working in layers. Yeah. Now, while I'm working on the face there too, I could take like a brighter version and maybe add a few highlights. Maybe I want like the cheeks to be a little flush. Maybe I want kind of the top part of the chin here. Maybe a little bit in the forehead. Maybe even on the top little part of my ears, I could put a tiny little highlight there. I also forgot to mention, right underneath this little chin, we want some of that darker color. Now, be mindful of your fingers. Remember, you may need to wipe them off when you're going between the tints and the shades, especially if my shade color is really dark it will greatly affect my other colors I'm working with too. But I just apply that the same way I was doing with the shadows. There you go, look at that. Really kind of made those cheeks glow a little bit. So carefully keep working your way around each area with those highlights and shades, or tints and shades, excuse me. Now I'll kind of quickly show you with the shirt here. I want to focus mainly kind of on the bottom part of the sleeve. And I'm going to just kind of add a little bit of that next green of mine. You can kind of see it there. If it doesn't quite look different enough, then maybe look for a slightly darker one. That might create a greater effect. Yeah, there we go. So I'll put some on each arm like that. I want to put a lot kind of at the very bottom underneath those arms. And then if I did not have this ball of yarn here, I would also put a little bit in between the arms there. Now I am going to just kind of put a little bit here to kind of separate the sleeve from the rest of the dress or shirt. Okay, and then just like before, gently mix those two into one another. And be real careful with these little details because we don't want to cover up all of our good work that we've done so far. We want to just kind of lightly add in these little highlights and shadows. And again, if it gets too much, just go back in and add more of the brighter color. Kind of correct it. But look at that. It's really starting to create some depth and kind of volume with my cat here. It's really kind of making some areas pop out at us more, some kind of go downwards. Again, with the white, you could use that to kind of further exaggerate some of those highlights. Maybe I have a little reflection on my little name tag or collar there. Maybe I want to use a white or a lighter color to add some little wavy lines in my hair. Again, I could leave it just like so, or I could then go back and go over it with my finger to kind of make it a little more subtle. But that not only creates a little highlight in the hair, but it also is adding a little texture to it, which I think can take it to a whole nother level and all on its own. But you are the artist. You can kind of take this as far as you would like. Just be mindful of your fingers. Clean them off in between very different colors so you don't end up making a big smudge where you don't want one. But there you go. Have fun. Keep working on those slow little shadows and come show me when you're finished.